Hey everyone, this is Rosemarie from the Unfinished Lesson, and this is another Quick Win series. In this particular series, we're looking at how do we adapt online group lessons for our special learners or neurodiverse students. If you haven't watched the previous videos, go to the description below, make sure you watch those. Everything is building on the previous videos, and there's some really, really great tips that will make your online group lessons a success, okay? So if you need to, hit pause, then come back to me. All right, let's go into video 4. So we're going to talk about being flexible, but also being active. And the reason I put these together is one of the easiest ways to be flexible is to be active. So when we have a group of students, we really do need to make sure we keep both of these things in mind. And this is something I always keep in mind as I'm planning my group lessons. I kind of anticipate that I'm going to have to do this. And it means that I don't run out of material. I don't run out of resources or ideas for things to do in the moment. Because if I tried to come up with something in the moment when I have all those kids on the screen, chances are there's a good chance I would blank out. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So here's a few tips that will help you out. 1, always plan more than you need. You know, every group lesson, I always make sure that there's more activities than we can possibly get through. Why? Well, I'll admit, not everything is a success. There have been times I was convinced my students would love something, and it totally bombed. I mean, crickets. Or they just said, yeah, I don't really like this. In which case, then I have 2 options. I can keep going with the activity, or 2, we can move on to something else. If I want students to be raving about the group lessons as part of their programming, then I need to make sure I pick the second option, right? We move on. Be really conscious of the energy levels of your students. Think ahead as you're planning. And I think I've talked about this in a previous series. What we want to do is manage the energy levels of our students. When they have too little or too much energy, this is usually when chaos reigns. And for our special learners, this is especially true. So, do they need a break? Do they need a chance to move around? Kind of think about what's going on in that moment of the group lesson as you're planning and think, okay, you know what? We were really active here. Let's pull it back a bit and let things chill out for a bit. Okay. Or if things have been maybe a bit more, you're listening to stuff, then the next activity probably needs to change. And one of the best ways, like I mentioned, is to be active. So many special learners actually find it almost impossible to sit still. This is why, for my special learners, if they're wiggling around on the piano bench as we're talking, they're doing this, I'm totally fine with that. One of my students years ago, when I travel taught, every time that I would write something in his practice page, I would say, okay, go run 3 laps, because they had this central wall and you could run around it. And so that's what he would do. I would write and he was able to run. His grandma, when she visited the first time, thought it was a little strange. And I said, yeah, but why does he need to sit still right now? I just need time to write this down. So he may as well move. And it worked out perfectly and meant that he could then focus in on what the next thing we did. You can have something similar in an online group lesson. I would recommend making sure that they stay within the screen where you can see them, but definitely get things active. So you can do tons of things. You can move to music. There's lots of YouTube videos for like Just Dance or movement breaks or brain breaks. You can have rhythms up. One of my students, he's obsessed with dinosaurs. So not so much in the group lessons, but in his private lessons, we do dinosaur actions. However, in group lessons, we've done thematic actions. So maybe if it was, say, Halloween, maybe we've got like a witch, and then we've got a ghost, right? Whatever it is, just kind of decide what you want to do. And then each type of note gets a different action. You could do things like you could have the Morkus teams if your students are going to be okay with that. Maybe you and your special learner, if you only have one in the group lesson, can be on a team together, where kids have to do burpees, or you could do, they have to race to the piano. If your special learner feels awkward or has mobility issues, probably don't choose something like that. Balancing is also another one to keep in mind. Maybe talk with parents first, see if there's any balancing issues before deciding to add that in. But maybe your student could even just put their hand on a wall or on the piano, and then that will help them do that. Have built-in screen breaks. I know it seems weird. If you're having an online group lesson, why would you have a screen break? But we need that, right? If I was talking to you like this the whole time, I mean, that would feel a little intense, right? So I make sure I move back. And you can move around. And so again, as long as they're within the screen so that you can see what they're doing, it's fine. If your student needs a break, and I covered this in a previous video, if they give you a signal that they need a break, that they need to move around, once they've given you the signal, just give them a signal back that yes, you acknowledge it. And if they're wandering around on the screen, as long as they stay in your eyesight, not a big deal. Yeah. Let them move around. It'll mean that it's more enjoyable for them. And to be honest, it'll be more enjoyable for all of you. All right, so before you go on the rest of your day, I have a goal for you. I'd like you to think about the tips that I've given you, and I'd like you to write some ways that you can have your students active in your next group lesson. So this is actually going to benefit not just your special learners, but all of your students. Okay. And honestly, as teachers, we need to move around as well. So it's a win-win-win. It's a win-win-win situation by having a little bit of activity in your group lessons. Okay, let me know some of your ideas below. What is something that kind of triggered you where you said, ooh, I kind of want to do that. Okay, and I look forward to reading your comments below. Make sure you check in for the next video.